everybody. Matt Michaels, Rob Mussolari, and Cindy City Steve here on the Vegas Bad Boys of Podcasting. We got a little special here, November's to Remember. I kind of look back at some of the big history moments in November because there's a lot of things that have happened over the years in this particular month. And we're going to kick it off here, November 15th, 1989. NWA Clash of Champions 9. It saw a main event of a non-title I Quit match between Nature Boy Ric Flair and Terry Funk. Now, Flair would win the match by making Funk quit when he locked in the figure four. The match would go on to be voted the fourth best match of the year by Wrestling Observer newsletter. The top three that year also featured Flair because they were all Flair versus Steamboat. It's a very, to me, it stands out, guys, as the year probably that Ric Flair was at the height of his career. You had the three Steamboat matches. The last Steamboat match ended with Funk on commentary, and that's when Terry Funk then took Flair and pile drove him through the announcer's table to set up what would be this I Quit match between the two of them. And at that time, too, Terry Funk was kind of, in a little bit of a limbo between what he had done in the WWF in 1986, had gone to Japan for a while and had now come back to the NWA and got a little more exposure through this match that would carry him eventually into about 50 more years of wrestling. So a very, very memorable match. One of the better I Quit matches as well. Do either of you guys, do you have a recollection of, did you guys see that match back then, or do you guys not really recall it at all?
I was 10.
Well, that would be the perfect age.
I didn't see it at the time, but I did go back and rewatch it. And yeah, it, like you said, it was one of the better I Quit matches for sure. I didn't, I guess, put two and two together, that 89 being the best year of Ric Flair's career until you just said it, but it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, you mentioned the matches with Steamboat and obviously this one with Funk. It's hard to argue against it.
Yeah, it really was just being around, the age of around 14 at that time, 14, 15. I got to say, it stood out. For all the Horsemen stuff, the Horsemen always got, the spotlight as the group. But Rick really, this was his pinnacle, where he was working 1 hour matches against Steamboat at house shows. So, and then, would, of course, leave a couple of years later for the WWF in 92. So, it was a big year for him, and it was a big move for Funk too, because that kind of rejuvenated his career. Let's go to the same day, November 15th in 1998, was the WWF Survivor Series. It didn't feature any traditional Survivor Series matches, but instead the event played host to the Deadly Game tournament to crown the new WWF champion. Going into the event, the story depicted Mankind as Vince McMahon's chosen winner, as McMahon's gang of lackeys helped him through the rounds while seeming to attempt to put barriers in the way of The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It transpired that this was an elaborate ruse, as The Rock turned out to be McMahon's chosen champion, and he defeated Mankind with the sharpshooter in the main event as McMahon brazenly reenacted the Montreal Screwjob from the year prior. When looking back on the incredibly well-booked tournament, viewers could easily see it was being set for The Rock to win, but it was incredibly well hidden and in the booking until the reveal at the end of the final match. Do you guys, to me, this was one of the best bookings ever of a tournament. Do you guys, again, this was Steve right around your, getting into high school age almost, right?
Yeah.
You were probably right around college age, right? So, or thereabouts. What do you guys remember about, The Rock winning his first championship? And, he was on fucking fire in terms of the heel he got after he won this, set up The Rock heel as being the biggest bad guy in wrestling.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned it right there. He was the biggest heel in wrestling immediately after this tournament. This was The Rock's unveiling, for lack of a better term. It previous to this, yeah, he was, third generation, yada yada. But quite frankly, I didn't see the draw so much in The Rock until he got the corporate, the corporate backing, and he became that guy. This was the jumping off point, in my opinion, of an amazing career.
Yeah, and you got to remember too. So in that year, the buildup was him in the Nation and taking over the Nation of Domination. And at that point, this is when, he was starting to come up with the catchphrases. He was starting to show the charisma. The Rocky sucks chants that he was getting from Rocky.
Die, Rocky, die.
Die, Rocky, die. All this kind of turned into the Heat chants. And then all of a sudden in 98, he was starting to get a big turn by the fans.
Yep.
And he was becoming a face in the eyes of the fans. They were, again, doing what they did to Austin, and that is taking the heel and going, that guy's pretty fucking cool. We're getting behind him. All that momentum that was going on, the fans just got shit on because of this heel turn, and they fucking hated him. And it was brilliant. Rob, do you remember?
This is about the time that I'm starting to watch, and the first thing you see and remember of him are the sunglasses.
All right, sure.
Because it hides your expression. It is really the ultimate, it is the quintessential poker face, and you need that because here's this guy coming in dressed up like some Persian pimp with the, and he's doing Ric Flair. We get it. He's doing Ric Flair, but he's bringing it to my generation. So my generation is watching Ric Flair after the fact and doubling back and rewatching tapes to understand what this is all about. He's doing it as homage, but it's new to me and it's really good. And he's a dick. And even when he goes over a couple of years down the road, he's still a dick because he owns you. He owns you. He's assuming. He assumes the sale. He's a salesman. Everything you do in life is selling. Everything you do in life. So you have to sell yourself. Even if you're a piece of shit, you can still go over. So he goes out there and he is walking out with McMahon every week. McMahon was coming out with these brown suits at the time, I remember. And he was showing up with the white shirt, the brown suit, and the black pants. And he's showing up with The Rock, and the crowd is just viscerally pissed. The boos are breaking the speakers on your TV. My speaker had crackling coming out of it from the boos. And he's got people on the top of their seat. It's a little different than Roman Reigns when Roman Reigns broke off from the Shield and he goes, nah, man, this doesn't suck. This isn't boring. This is my life. No, that was, we really just are bored with you. This is, you have violently angered us. You are loathsome. I want to do something. And he worked with that so well. Yeah. Roman Reigns was never able to figure out how to, all right, they don't like me. Now I have to find newer ways to piss them off instead of just flatline, they don't like me. Yeah. Like Dominic will do that. You brought that earlier. Dominic will do the teardrops and say, I was in prison and this is my mommy, but they don't do it. He finds ways to piss you off. Rock found ways to piss the audience off and double and triple and quadruple down. And that was my first experience I want to watch this program now. Because you have him doing it and you have Stone Cold doing it simultaneously. And we don't know if they're not. Are you on my side? Oh, no, you're not. You're assuming I am. That was the thing. He wasn't talking down to me. He's literally that guy like, why is that girl dating this guy who treats her like shit? That's The Rock. He's the boyfriend that treats you like shit, but you keep coming back.
And speaking of The Rock, November 17th, 1996, the WWF Survivor Series is basically historically important because that was the television debut of Rocky Maivia. He would become the sole survivor in his debut match. But later on that card, Bret the Hitman Hart wrestled his first match since WrestleMania 12, facing and defeating Stone Cold Steve Austin for the first time. And in the main event, Psycho Sid enjoyed the surprising fan support as he defeated Shawn Michaels to win the WWF Championship. It's a notable Survivor Series because what you had just seen from that card established what would happen for the next 5 years, essentially. You had The Rock debut, and who would have ever fucking thought? Because this guy comes out and he looks like, he's just that awful haircut, the fucking weird
the Andrew Dice Clay haircut.
Yeah, the weird thing they put on his neck that had like leather straps going down,
tassels everywhere.
Yeah, it was just so bad. And you had him being.
Excuse me, The Rock wants to know where Christian Cage is.
It was something that would be a debut that in the end Rocky Maivia could have been something that just could have sunk him, but he ended up as we talked about just breaking through that. But the big thing with Austin and Bret was Bret just never understood why the fans liked Austin. And I think that's the funniest thing about Bret Hart. The guy was a great wrestler, but he didn't understand that wrestling is something that is affected by societal change, and couldn't grasp the fact that he was a good guy. He was, a role model. And why are fans starting to like this asshole?
I could jump in on this. 1996. I'm in high school. Everyone in my high school is watching ECW.
Sure.
It's playing on Madison Square Garden, 3 a.m, a Tajiri match at 3 a.m. Al Snow what does everybody want? Head! And I'm going, what the fuck is this? And then one day at our local mall in Westchester County, Jefferson Valley, Simon Management Mall. It's got like 4 stores left in it. It's an empty mall now. But they shut off the fountain. Here's the stage, and here's signing autographs. Bret the Hitman Hart and Rob Van Dam. And I don't know who they are. And someone's explaining it to me. And my first thought was it's 96, and Bret the Hitman Hart looks like he's an old man. He's got bags under his eyes. He's huffing and puffing every time he's signing an autograph. He's pained to be there. There is a line for this fucking guy, and he doesn't want to be there. And that's my first impression of the guy. And then I turn on WWE. And at this point, 96, I'm watching it once a month for like a 20 minutes, half an hour. And this guy looks like that. Perception is reality. If you look like you're an exhausted and beat up and tired, you're not going to sell anything. I'm not going to sell. If I come up to you and I've got scuffed up shoes and my shirt's is faded with stains on it, you're going to go. And I go, hey, welcome. Just if you need me, just ask. I'll be in the corner. I'm drinking a coffee. You're going to go, who the fuck is this guy? You know? So if some guy shows up and he's got a shiny bald head and a goatee and he looks like the mechanic who's probably banging your girlfriend on the weekends when you're not around, and he's going to threaten to kick the shit out of you, and he's quoting the Bible in his own name, and you're like, God damn, that's another level.
Yeah.
And he's full of energy.
Yep.
Energy. His entrance music isn't some rocker 90s crap. It was something ahead of its time. He comes out and there's glass shattering. This guy's going to beat the shit out of you. The Rock comes up dressed up like some fucking Persian pimp, and he talks about how and you're like, God damn. And then you had this guy who's dressed up in neon pink like it's 1989. He didn't get the memo. He had this old late 80s gear. It was like watching Saved by the Bell, and it's the 90s, and these guys have this perv Casey Kasem running around at their school sock hop, and I'm going, what the fuck am I watching? These guys are like 20, and they still have Casey Kasem doing sock hops. Hey, this is Casey Kasem here. I'm at this random high school in Southern California, ambiguously beach area, and we're with these beautiful blonde-eyed kids, blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids, man, and the one token black chick and the one nerd. All right, let's play the sounds of the 70s. And you're like, what am I watching? It's like 1995. You're still doing this? You know, I get it. He had a tag team in the early 90s with Jim Neidhart, and it was big. You didn't get the message. Shit changed. Being a dick changed. Hunter Hearst Helmsley was a British dick. And then he kept the dick and dropped all the other pretense around it, and he made something of himself by just being an asshole.
Yeah.
And now when they see him, they go, oh, I love you, Hunter.
Yeah. No, it's it's just interesting, to see where it was in 96. The same day, in 1997, we had two events that happened, one on Nitro and one on Raw. On Nitro, the NWO introduced their newest member, Ravishing Rick Rude, supporting his traditional mustache. An hour or so later, WWF Monday Night Raw aired its pre-tape show from Ontario, Canada, and Ravishing Rick Rude was in the ring with a full beard.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That was the whole thing, that Rude left because his contract had basically not been extended. He didn't like the screw job in Montreal, so he went to WCW. So he's the only wrestler that appeared on both shows on the same night. But the third part of this trivia is that weekend he would also appear on ECW Hardcore TV. He's the only wrestler in the history of wrestling to appear on the three major company shows in 1 week, which was really just a cool thing to happen.
And then he was talking with Jeff Jarrett about a new idea for a company.
And unfortunately, this was probably Rick Rude's last big thing he was noted for, because he was never really able to wrestle again. No one would insure him because of his injuries. Now, on the same day on that Raw that Rude was on, that is the show that Vince McMahon sat down with Jim Ross to talk about the Montreal screw job and gave the now famous Bret speech. Quote, some would say I screwed Bret Hart. Bret Hart would definitely tell you I screwed him. I look at it from a different standpoint. The referee didn't screw Bret Hart. Shawn Michaels certainly didn't screw Bret Hart, nor did Vince McMahon screw Bret Hart. I truly believe that Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart. One of the greatest moments for Vince in terms of your, first of all, you just gave your big built star an out because you didn't want to pay him the contract that you guaranteed him. You were losing money, you're losing in the ratings, and you let him go to WCW. It almost seems like Vince caught on to the fact that things were changing and he needed to change fast. And so he let this guy just go. Hey, go ahead. He screwed him. I mean, that's how fucking, that's how much.
Perfect timing, too. He didn't do jack shit in WCW.
No, not at all.
And that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
When you look at it, you just go, man, that was a brilliant move. It saved his company. And you were looking at a guy who wouldn't have had any real production for you, most likely, or value. And you got one of the best shoot type interviews and one of Vince's first in terms of him becoming an on-screen character. It just is one of those remarkable standout. Also one of the, Jim Ross at that point had done the Mankind sit down where he got, the mandible claw at the end of the 3 episodes of that. You'd done the sit down with Terry and Dustin when Dustin basically told Terry that the marriage was over. It was some of the best video producing segments that they had ever done. And it all was in that transition year of 97, which was pretty huge.
Really, how versatile is he as a performer, Dustin Runnels?
Oh, dude, he's one of the best.
Yeah.
He has absolutely been one of the best. Probably one of the Dustin's biggest problem was the fact that he had drug issues.
Yes.
If
Absolutely.
he would have stayed clean, if he would have been someone that they could have trusted a little bit more, he probably could have been elevated way higher.
Maybe champion at least once.
Yeah. There's no doubt that Goldust was one of the most popular characters there for a while. And one of the most controversial. He's
Absolutely.
one of the first guys who was given them national media attention because there was questions about this character being this gay or ambiguous type character. So
he had lingerie on. That was one of the early matches I saw. Was she was puffing away on this big cigar, and they ripped away his costume, and he had on a whole women's nightie, like the garter belt, and I went, "Oh, okay, this is what wrestling is." This was one of the first matches I ever saw. Was that?
Yeah. Very. I mean, Dustin just throughout the years one of the best. On that same day again, November.
Really quick. I just have to point something out. I was actually at that Nitro in Cincinnati.
Oh,
and obviously this is before I knew shit about shit when it comes to anything, kayfabe or whatever. So obviously Rick Rude is a character on WWE TV. They bring out Rick Rude and everybody in the section is like, all right, what the fuck is going on? Because no one knew anything about the contract. No one knew anything, about him just letting him walk, any of that kind of stuff. So it was a very interesting situation because as far as we knew, he was a contracted member of the other show. So that was really cool to experience live for sure.
That was hard for me at that time because you don't realize if you're just starting out, you don't realize what the Monday Night Wars are. You just understand all you're seeing is this weekend a pay-per-view, and it would be nonstop ads for pay-per-views. And then it got to the point where it was NWO WCW presents, and I was like, who's Goldberg? Is he the Stone Cold knockoff? Why would I want to watch NWO? It looks like all the washed up guys from the 80s. And then that came to fruition. But that's where I was like, there were too many choices. I felt like even 2 were too many. And then ECW's there, and I'm like, well, now I'm sitting there going, all right, I got to watch 4 more hours of this, and then there's a TNA match, and then there's an NJPW match, then there's a women's wrestling match and a Shine match, and an intergender NWA Billy Corgan's got no penis match promotion, and then. But back then, I'm like, new. So what do I watch first? So that's why it was tough for me to like focus on one thing to watch, because they're going back and forth simultaneously. And then one guy's telling you, don't watch this. Shivani goes, oh, Mankind just won the belt. You idiot.
What's interesting is you just brought up a point that I found very, this is the pinnacle of what was going on between the two shows. And this was November 29th, 1999. Now, I was there. This was Raw, the wedding of Stephanie McMahon and Test, in which Triple H interrupted it and played a video revealing that he secretly married an intoxicated Stephanie McMahon at a drive-thru in Las Vegas. The whole thing was later revealed to be a plot between the new Mr. and Mrs. Helmsley. It was one of the best fucking live shows I've ever been at. And that's because nobody in the arena expected that fucking video to play. No one saw that coming. If you go back and you watch it, Vince's face, his eyes are about to fucking explode out of his head. He was so pissed that this happened. Stephanie is crying. Stephanie's all of, I think, like 22 years old at that time. Just, had only been on TV for a handful of months. The whole buildup of during that summer, Test and Stephanie Test was basically asked her to marry him, but then she got hit in the head and had amnesia and couldn't remember who Test was. And it took a few weeks to build it back up to where Stephanie then proposed to him in the ring.
And we all have amnesia? I don't remember.
Yeah, that's how it built to this wedding. And then, of course, they went on to do the McMahon Helmsley era. This was at the peak of, this was also the point, too, where Austin had his neck surgery.
Yep.
So Steve was out and Hunter now was elevated. And then WrestleMania, of course, 2000 was the big event coming up then, where you had the four McMahons with a wrestler each. Mick Foley, who just retired, was asked to come out of retirement to wrestle in that match. The Big Show, who had a brief run in '99 with the championship right around that time in the end of '99. Hunter, of course, defending the title, and The Rock, who was the babyface chasing it. And they made the biggest move they've ever made, and that was the heel retained the belt for the first time at WrestleMania. And it was one of the greatest WrestleManias I've ever been to, too, because of that, because the fans were pissed. But before we talk about that a little bit, the same day on WCW Nitro, TV champion Scott Hall throws the title in the garbage of the TV championship in the garbage. He threw it in the garbage, and it rendered the title defunct until Hacksaw Jim Duggan plunked it out of the trash. And he did that the following year when he was portraying a janitor character.
Yep.
Oh, I thought that was real. That was a work? I thought that's what he did in between matches.
Yeah. That's what he was actually under contract for.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan's right now is going to be cleaning out the shitters at the Hudson Civic Center. Go get your autograph on a piece of toilet paper. 2-ply.
1 square.
One
square. But that shows, just the difference of what they were coming up with in WCW as versus what Raw was doing, and why the tide had changed. And
was Vince Russo there by that point?
Yeah.
Because was, you always hear at the end of WCW that he was accredited for all the problems.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Bischoff had the vision, and Vince Russo would come out and do some hokey storyline, or have a bunch of, like the last year, every other month the belts would change hands. So nobody held a belt for more than a couple of months at a time. So the belts were pretty bendy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Vince Russo left. I think it was somewhere near the end of '98, somewhere around that time. Him and Kevin, I forget fucking the other guy's name who portrayed good old OK in WCW when they were making fun of Jim Ross's Bell's palsy in early '99. So they were there. Ed Ferrara, there we go. Yes. They were there in early '99 by that time. This was definitely stuff that Russo had his hands on. I think by the end of '99 was the first time that Bischoff was gone. So right around this time, Russo was, basically the only voice. And then they had to bring Bischoff back because they realized they created a monster. And then those two didn't work out well together.
I don't know what happened. I made a bunch of storylines about a freaking guy who was fishing titles out of the trash, and they didn't like it.
But it's just interesting that you had one of the most still memorable things in WWF history, WWE history, going on while they were, throwing a TV title, their own TV title, into the garbage. But one of the biggest things, of course,
they were trying to get off that Alundra Blaze heat that probably would work twice.
Yeah, except Alundra's belt was another company's, and this
you're shitting on your own product.
Just makes no sense.
Exactly.
November 22nd, 1990, one of the biggest events or moments in wrestling history happened, and that was the debut of The Undertaker at Survivor Series. Do either of you guys, Steve, you were young, and Rob, you don't seem like you were probably watching at that time.
No. I had seen a few things in the early '80s of Cyndi Lauper running in with Captain Lou Albano, took a break. I couldn't have told you what promotion it was. And then by the time Undertaker had just started, no, I know he came in later on. He was, part of an Atesh, he was part of Ted DiBiase's little, surprise guy.
Well, that was it. Yeah. He was the surprise, mystery person on the team
with the Fred Flintstone tie and
the huge tie.
I'll tell you though, I was 8 years old, and that was one of the first pay-per-views that we had ordered at my parents' house. And at the time, obviously, again, I'm 8 years old. I loved the dark, spooky, the paranormal type shit even back then. And here comes this guy who is 7 feet tall. No one else in the ring is even close. And he's just foreboding. He doesn't, he looks effortless out there. And he legitimately scared a lot of people in the audience. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking, this is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
By
and
today's
proceeded.
standards, he's like Party City level scary.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But at that time, like I said, I'm fucking 8 years old. I was all in on the Undertaker at that time. I was like, holy shit, this is the coolest shit ever.
Did you say
So,
all in?
I did.
And you got to understand, that was again 1990.
Yep.
This is November of '98. This is about a month, roughly about a month before Desert Storm started.
Yep.
So there was still a hokiness going on, and the Undertaker character, weirdly enough, was a very almost gray area between hokey and something more mature. And I think that, what you saw a year later was when he defeated Hogan at Survivor Series for the title, and then a couple days later lost it to Hogan, and made the
But he's
belt
an
vacant.
example of less is more, because same thing with Kane. If I come in and I'm not speaking and no words are coming out of my mouth, you have no idea what I sound like. You only have your imagination to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving you much to work with except what you see. Jack Nicholson said this of his role in Batman. He was like, let the costume do the talking. Okay. That was it. He's going to go in there and do his job, which is to be a pro wrestler. And he did that. And he has good representation coming in, which set him up. So you catapulted him in there. And now he just looks like a freak show. And it's 1990. I was joking earlier about, you're talking, that's when Saved by the Bell still got Casey Kasem running around, and people are wearing big clunky shoes and suits with the elbow pads, and everyone's got neon colors. And here's this goth guy.
Yeah.
But there's no goth back then. We don't know what it is. There's nothing to reference him to.
Right.
The less you know about him, the more mysterious he is, and it builds him over.
And again, one of the the biggest factor in all these things that we've mentioned here is that the internet was either non-existent or in its infancy in all those
93.
Yeah, so between 89 and 99, you didn't have spoilers or smart mark stuff. All you had was guys like Meltzer. Now, people who watched the NWA or WCW realized that it was Mark, and it was Mean Mark. But you talk about someone who, and again, it shows the difference between the two products. WCW, they didn't know what to do with this guy and just said, yeah, you can go. And Vince,
here's what we want for you. We want you to be meaner, Mark, okay? You don't have to wear none of that hokey eye makeup either. I just want you to growl into the camera. Come on. Grr, give me that little... This isn't working.
And the guys that he was around that were the biggest guys in WCW at that time in terms of height and stuff was El Gigante, the Giant, and Sid Vicious, who he would face both in WrestleManias.
Yeah.
So,
well, you got to remember they were doing Shockmaster, huh? Shockmaster.
Shockmaster was 1995. But now think about this. You brought up Shockmaster. You do realize that one of the most prominent characters in WWF at that time in 1990 was Tugboat.
Yep.
Who went on to be Shockmaster.
Yep.
So that poor man. How is he? Is he still alive?
Yes.
Can we give him a mental health check?
Oh, he's doing great, actually. Yeah, Fred Ottoman's doing great. And don't forget,
good old Tug job.
Yeah, he went from boatload to becoming a typhoon.
Oh God.
But okay, well, that's a little look at some of the stuff that happened in November over the years, some of the more memorable things. Again, thank you for
You didn't
tuning in.
remember November to Dismember.
November to Dismember, of course. Yeah.
No
Gotta love
thanks.
the names.
Hey, you know what? November, Shane Douglas won the ECW title, and that was the first day of or the winning it, going into that the longest reigning ECW title reign.
The night the line was crossed.
Yep. So there a lot of stuff that happened in November, but
And a young Rob Boss Larry's watching blurry porn and then skipping back to MSG ECW matches.
Nice.
Blurry porn and a guy doing weird stuff with a mannequin head.
So a
awesome.
Friday night.
Yeah.
A Friday night.
Typical Tuesday.
Typical Tuesday. Fearless Fridays and typical Tuesdays. Is that door going to open up? Oh boy. What are you doing, Mom? Either one of them is bad. Blurry porn or a guy face fucking a styrofoam head.
The question was the sock on the door, or was the sock on your
What does everybody want?
Oh man.
What does everybody need?
It's funny you're focusing on the mannequin head and not Kimono Wanolea.
Right.
Yeah.
I just missed that. Please forget about it. If it was Kimono Live, I would have even made it here. They're like, oh God.
Francine, man, it was something else. Don Marie. You trashy New York women you had back then. It's just something else.
They took us to go see Cats in the Winter Garden Theater on West 42nd Street, and they said, avert your eyes from all of the sex shops that surrounded all around it, and the hookers, like and again, these are like hookers like who didn't know to retire from the 70s. So you see like old fat women in like disco boots from the 70s just surrounding the Winter Garden Theater. This is that was my 6th grade field trip.
Well, hey man, you went to see Cats and you got a lot of extra pussy.
Exactly.
Ah, good Lord. Oh God.
Well,
you got me. You got me.
You know what? It just goes to show, Rob, at that point in your life, you really were doing an old rum-tum tugger.
The puns. I think I'm having a stroke here from all these fucking puns.
Oh, memories.
Oh, Jesus. No. Oh no!
Oh man!
Oh God!
Oh, that time of your life was just magical, Mr. Mustapheles.
Oh God! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh God! Oh no!
Well, from all of us here at the Vegas Bad Boys and the cast of Cats 1996 and the Winter Gardens Theater, we want to thank you for tuning in. And until next time, happy wrestling, everybody.